Most people choose an SUV based on how it looks in the driveway or how it feels on a test drive. Very few people choose based on what it actually costs to own over 10 years. That second number matters more because the gap between a cheap-to-own SUV and an expensive one isn't hundreds of dollars, it's tens of thousands. The average SUV costs somewhere close to $8,000 to $10,000 a year once you add up depreciation, insurance, fuel, and repairs. But that average hides a wide range. Some models sit well below it because they're built to run past 200,000 miles on routine maintenance alone. Others sit well above it because a single failed component can cost more than a year of payments on something else. This is a rundown of 9 SUVs that consistently land on the low-cost side of that range, followed by 2 that regularly land on the high-cost side, so you know what to look for and what to avoid. The Outback created the modern crossover formula, a wagon body raised for clearance, symmetrical all-wheel drive as standard equipment, and a suspension tuned for gravel roads as much as highways. That last point matters more than it sounds, because all-wheel drive is standard rather than an option. Every Outback on the used market has it, which keeps resale values consistent and keeps insurers comfortable pricing it as a stable, predictable vehicle. Long-term owners routinely report 200,000 miles with nothing beyond oil changes, brake jobs, and tires. The 2.5-liter Boxer engine isn't quick, but it's mechanically simple and has a long service history, which is part of why shops see relatively few of them for anything beyond scheduled work. If you want more performance without giving up that reliability profile, the 2.4-liter turbo variant offers around 260 horsepower with a similar maintenance record. The RAV4 is the best-selling SUV in the US for a straightforward reason. Toyota optimized it for low ownership cost rather than for driving excitement. The engineering priority was durability, a chassis and drivetrain designed to run past 300,000 miles without major intervention, and that's exactly what shows up in long-term ownership data. The financial case for the RAV4 isn't just about avoiding repair bills. It's also about what happens when you sell it. Because Toyota's reliability reputation is well established, used RAV4s hold value at a rate that rivals from Honda or Ford often can't match, sometimes selling close to what a competitor's equivalent year model costs new. That's depreciation working in your favor instead of against you. The current 2.5-liter four-cylinder isn't exciting to drive, but the trade-off is a vehicle that behaves more like an appreciating asset than a depreciating one. The RDX is worth a closer look because of what's underneath it, not just the badge on the front. From 2013 to 2018, it shared its 3.5-liter V6 and 6-speed automatic transmission with the Honda Pilot, a drivetrain with a long, well-documented reliability record. Acura wrapped that mechanical foundation in a nicer interior, better sound insulation, and more standard tech, without changing the parts that actually fail. The result is a luxury badge vehicle that depreciates more like a mainstream one. A 2013 RDX frequently costs less on the used market than a RAV4 of the same age, despite offering more interior space and more standard features. Owners regularly report 150,000 miles on routine maintenance alone, a bar that a comparable BMW X3 often doesn't clear without at least one expensive transmission repair. Insurance classification can work in your favor here too, since some providers price it closer to a mainstream crossover than to a German luxury SUV. Hyundai's reliability reputation from a decade ago doesn't reflect where the brand is now, and the clearest evidence is the warranty. A 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty, the longest offered by any mainstream manufacturer. That's not just marketing. It's Hyundai betting on its own engine and transmission durability, and it functions as built-in insurance against the one kind of repair that can genuinely wreck a budget. Real-world ownership data backs this up. Santa Fe owners commonly report 200,000 miles with nothing beyond oil changes, brakes, and tires. Fuel economy is competitive for the class. Resale values have improved steadily over the past several model years, and insurance costs typically undercut comparable Jeep and Volkswagen SUVs. For buyers who want dependability without paying a premium for a Japanese badge, the Santa Fe is one of the stronger value cases in the segment. The LX is mechanically a Toyota Land Cruiser with a luxury interior, And that matters because the Land Cruiser platform has one of the strongest longevity records of any vehicle sold globally. It's not unusual for these to reach 400,000 to 500,000 miles, and in regions where vehicles are run harder and longer, parts of Africa and the Middle East, for example, the trade-off is fuel economy. Expect 15 to 17 miles per gallon, which is genuinely poor. But the ownership math still favors it against rivals like the Mercedes G-Wagon, where a single suspension or electronics repair can run $2,500 or more. Because so few LX owners ever need to replace one, depreciation is unusually slow. Used values stay high for longer than almost anything else in the luxury SUV segment. If the fuel cost is acceptable to you, this is close to the ceiling for mechanical durability in a luxury vehicle. The CX-5 is proof that reliability and driving engagement aren't mutually exclusive. Most compact SUVs are tuned purely for comfort and predictability. The CX-5 is tuned to actually be enjoyable to drive, and it still holds up mechanically past 200,000 miles with standard maintenance. One specific design choice matters here. Mazda uses a conventional 6-speed automatic instead of a CVT. CVTs are cheaper to produce and slightly more fuel efficient, but they've historically had more variable long-term reliability than traditional automatics, and repairs tend to be more expensive when they do fail. RepairPal rates the CX-5 at 4.5 out of 5 for reliability, and that rating is consistent with real ownership reports. The interior is tighter than a RAV4 or CR-V, but that's the trade-off for a more engaging chassis, not a trade-off against durability. Consumer Reports has scored the Forester at 98 out of 100 for reliability, among the highest scores given to any vehicle in that publication's testing. The one caveat worth addressing directly: Subaru's CVT transmissions had documented reliability issues roughly a decade ago. That's been substantially resolved in current generations, provided the CVT fluid is changed on Subaru's recommended interval, roughly every 30,000 miles. Skip that maintenance step and you reintroduce the risk. Follow it and the failure rate drops sharply. Owners routinely report 200,000 plus miles, and because Subaru has a loyal, repeat buyer customer base, resale values stay strong relative to competitors like the Nissan Rogue or Ford Escape. Standard all-wheel drive, consistently strong safety ratings, and fuel economy that's competitive for the class round out a genuinely well-balanced ownership case. The CR-V has outsold the RAV4 in some recent years, and the newer generations make a strong case why. Sharper handling, more standard safety equipment, and fuel economy up to roughly 30 miles per gallon combined. But the more striking evidence is historical. Some second-generation CR-Vs from the early 2000s are approaching 500,000 miles without a major engine or transmission rebuild. That's an unusually high ceiling for a mainstream compact SUV. Insurance costs benefit from the CR-V's consistent top safety pick plus rating, typically undercutting less safety-focused competitors like the Jeep Cherokee or Ford Escape. Combined with Honda's resale reputation, the CR-V holds value well enough that trading it in later rarely feels like a financial loss. The HR-V takes the CR-V's mechanical philosophy and applies it to a smaller, more efficient package. Owners commonly report 150,000 to 200,000 miles with minimal repairs beyond scheduled maintenance, and because it's lighter than the CR-V, fuel economy climbs to around 34 miles per gallon on the highway. It shares Honda's strong safety ratings and, because of lower repair costs after minor collisions, tends to carry lower insurance premiums than larger SUVs in the lineup. It's not a vehicle built for power or towing. It's built for low total cost of ownership and daily use, and on that metric it's hard to beat in its size class. The Wrangler's off-road capability and cultural status are real, but that reputation doesn't extend to reliability or ownership cost. Owners have reported recurring electrical issues, oil leaks, suspension wear, and a known handling issue at highway speeds, sometimes called death wobble, where the front suspension oscillates violently after hitting a bump. Crash test results have also been inconsistent, with some configurations receiving marginal safety ratings. Insurers price that risk in, which is part of why Wrangler premiums tend to run higher than similarly priced SUVs. None of this makes it a bad vehicle for its intended purpose, but as a primary daily driver evaluated on cost and dependability, it underperforms its price point. The Explorer looked on paper like a strong family SUV, spacious, well-equipped, reasonably priced. In practice, the 2011 to 2019 generation developed a documented pattern of transmission problems. Hesitation, harsh shifting, and outright failures, frequently before 100,000 miles, with repair costs commonly starting around $3,000 and not always resolving the issue permanently. Add in reported water pump leaks routed through the engine's cooling system, some electrical faults, and several recalls, and the pattern of higher-than-average claims shows up directly in insurance pricing. Later generations have improved, but buyers looking at this specific range should factor in a meaningfully higher risk of major repair costs. The SUVs that save you money aren't necessarily the cheapest to buy. They're the ones that combine four things: mechanical durability that keeps repair frequency low, safety ratings that keep insurance costs down, a reputation strong enough to protect resale value, and a maintenance schedule simple enough that you'll actually follow it. Over a 10-year ownership period, the difference between a vehicle that meets those four criteria and one that doesn't is often the equivalent of a down payment on your next car. That's the actual argument for choosing carefully. Not styling, not badge prestige, but the cumulative effect of lower costs compounding year after year.